Apin Systems. This has been a passion of mine for many years, since Voyagers 2 actually came out. And my name is Pammy. For those of you who know me, hello. For those of you who don't, you might recognize my voice as I do the phone desk now for the Azurite Press. So welcome, and I hope you will enjoy this. One of the things that I wanted to mention before we get started is quite a few people have asked me what techniques we're going to be running in this module. You know, and I thought about that for a little bit when I was preparing this, what technique would be best to offer. And then I realized the technique is the module itself. Because as we go through, you're going to be learning about history. We're going to be going forward and backward in time, and I'll guide you through that. And you're going to be having the opportunity to activate cellular memory with this information. And as I continued to prepare the presentation, you know, I had to go back into Voyagers, and I started realizing how relevant Voyagers information is still to this day. And you will see just how relevant it is. And I also realized that we're the Voyagers that they talk about in Voyagers now. Back in 2002, I remember going, wow, who are those Voyagers? You know, back in 1999 when Voyagers 1 came out, I was doing the same thing. Who are those Voyagers? You know, and when I was preparing for this module, I kind of heard a little voice in my head that said, look in the mirror. We are the Voyagers. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to get that out of the way a little bit. Also, let me just move these a little bit. Everybody have a handout. In the handout, there's information that's not going to be in the module itself, simply because the module was put together as a story. It's different. It's not like I'm going to be giving tons of technical information like we usually do. It's going to be a story, and it's going to have a flow to it that's going to allow you to activate that cellular memory. So in the handout itself, in the back, there's a drama escalation. I'll be going over just a couple of those as updates. And there's also a couple of pages in the back that give you the race lines and their associations out in 3D and what Apin system they're associated with. So that's not information that I'll be covering, so I've put it in the handout for you. Okay? So these are the MCEO Freedom Teachings presented by Adachi MCEO LLC in association with Azurite Press MCEO. Wow, you know, I'm going to have to move back to see that. Copyright is 1999-2011, A&A Dean. All rights are reserved. Now, the disclaimer at the bottom is important, so I'm going to read that. The materials presented in this presentation reflect the dynamics of the emerging MCEO materials and the reality that the detailed understanding of major topics is under continuous development. Since a lot of this information is from Voyagers 2, it may seem out of date, but I'm going to do my best to bring it into present time. Okay? Therefore, the contents and level of detail herein are as advanced as possible up to the date of publication of the source materials. Okay? You might want to find a different seat, because I'm going to be kind of walking right in front of you. Okay? Okay? All right. Okay, so this is the Apin Systems module. We're going to have the historical overview, which is where the activation of the cellular memory will come in, and that's a beautiful technique. And the Niberian crystal tempo bases, what are those? We're going to find that out. And wormholes. Not all the wormholes, just some of the wormholes. Okay, so we begin with the motto of the Guardian Alliance. Freedom is the creed of the GA. Awareness is their method, and love is their motivation. These are called the Freedom Teachings because this is what it offers. Freedom. The awareness is, I bet anybody here can agree with me that they've definitely given us awareness of what's going on a planetary and personal level. Am I correct? Galactic and universal and cosmic. Okay. Love is their motivation. The love in these teachings is undeniable. And the love is in giving back the teachings. So we always start with my relationship with Source comes first. As we move through this presentation, some of this material may be challenging for you to hear, but it is our story. It's not the story that they teach out in 3D of history. This is our story, the story of the Voyagers. So if you want to take a moment, just breathe in that beautiful Akasha code. And feel and tell yourself, my relationship with Source comes first. And all else will flow effortlessly from that. Okay, so we're going to begin with dial-up. Is there anybody here that is not familiar with dial-up? Wow. Okay. So dial-up, what we're doing with dial-up is we are reaching to our eternal selves, and they are reaching back to us. So the tones that we use, I'll go over the tones once, and then we'll pronounce them all together. Those tones are activating those levels of ourselves, and we're just saying, help, I'm reaching to you, and they will reach back. They will grab your hand, and they will guide you through the process. Okay? So we begin with, can you give me a second? No, I can't do it with this podium here. We're just about to begin dial-up, so good timing. Okay, are you familiar with the Song of Lyra? Okay. All right, so this is the creation decree. Invocation is the personal D12 Christos Avatar Maharata self-identity. So we're going to say this, and I actually like to say lovingly stated absolute intention as a reminder to myself that I'm not just doing this by rote, that this is actually, I'm calling in my Christos self. So if we can do that on 3, everybody say that. On 1, 2, 3. From this still point of my wholeness, in manifest decision, I decree in sovereign knowing, here expressed at my command, lovingly stated, absolute intention, the divine will and intention of the one self that is one God, the one self that is one God. This I am. And then we'll start at the top here. We'll say, in the name of the Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order, Holy Order of the Unicized Sacred House of One, and I will pronounce these one time so that everybody knows how they're pronounced. Ma'a Rata Kumbai Vectus, and then you would put your name there. So I would put Pemi, or whatever you choose to call yourself. Inevo kai un iblium by vectai, ma'a by vectai, un ure ur nam ur, iste unte isa trajda he hera, petate a shalom, taeja intadoe, shadai ure akumtan. And we say that last line 3 times. Okay? So on 3, 1, 2, 3. Holy Order of the Unicized Sacred House of One. Maharata Kumbai Vectus. In ego kai uniblium by vectai. Maha by vectai unure unamur. Iste unte isa trasha hehera. Patate uma ashalum taesha intadoe. Shadayure akumtan akumtan. Shadayure akumtan akumtan. Shadayure akumtan. So now this is pronounced ma'ahwete un ise esh ador. You can just follow along with us, and we say this 3 times, and we'll focus on the Iumbi point, which is 2 inches below the navel here. So when we look at these consciousness codes that you're going to see on the screen, remember that they are alive. They are beings that you can choose to co-create with. They're not just 2-dimensional images on the screen. Okay? So we're going to say Ma'awete Unise Eshadur 3 times, and we're going to inhale into the Iumbi point and then exhale. Okay? Ma'awete Unise Eshadur. Ma'awete Unise Eshadur. Ma'awete Unise Eshadur. Inhale. And exhale. Isn't this a beautiful one, too? This is from Kathara 2:3. This is pronounced La'atori Ithwa Duete Niwa. Okay, and we'll do that 3 times. We'll focus on the Azare. So we'll say it 3 times. We'll inhale it into the Azare and exhale. Ready? Le'etore ithwa duete niwa. Le'etore ithwa duete niwa. Le'etore ithwa duete niwa. Inhale to the Edzere and exhale. Now this one, I am the Adondra 360. Now I just breathe it all around me. Okay? I am the Adondra 360 now. I am the Adondra 360 now. I am the Adondra 360 now. This one is Adondra Iesta Utshiwa Adonai. Okay? Adondra Iesta Utshiwa Adonai. Adondra Iesta Utshiwa Adonai. Adondra Iesta Utshiwa Adonai. Okay, so we'll do Taesha Intadore 3 times. Intadore. Taesha Intadore. Taesha Intadore. That means spoken as it is stated, so as it is done. Okay, so we're ready to begin the presentation. And as I said earlier, as we move through the presentation, some of the information may be challenging to hear, and that's fine. Just allow yourself to entertain some of the concepts and some of the images you'll see today. And if you need a break, just put your hand up, let me know. We'll take a break. We'll have some stretch breaks. We're going to try to do lunch around noon-ish, and then we'll come back and we'll do the Mahark Quick Seal, and we'll continue on into some more information. All right, so this is the APN Crystal Temple bases, the Phoenix and the Falcon and the Leostaki wormholes, and historical overview. Now, there is so much information in Voyagers 2. I couldn't possibly put it all in one presentation in one day, maybe a few weeks presentation. So the information is presented, it's not as detailed as it could be, but on the bottom of every slide I've put down where I was able to, where I found the information, so that if you need me to read what's on the bottom of the slide so you know where you can find more information, just ask me. In the lower right-hand corner, you will see the slide numbers. If you have questions, you can write the slide number down. And if I haven't answered that as the presentation goes through, feel free to ask a question. And in the upper right-hand corner, on most of the slides, not on this one, you'll see a slide number. That's for me. That's just my reference because this is the biggest module I've put together in a long time. Okay? So the topics that we're going to cover in Chapter 1 are the players. Certainly not all the players, just some of the players. The Great White Lion and the Golden Eagle APIN systems. We'll learn what the APIN systems are, what the difference is between the Great White Lion and the Golden Eagle. We'll learn about Crystal Temple bases, the Templar Conquest. I think we're all very familiar with that, but we're going to look at it from the standpoint of Voyagers 2. Crisis intervention, I think we're familiar with that as well. And wormholes and the wall in time. So the Christic truth speaks eternal regardless of who does or does not listen. So what I would ask you to do is if you come with any preconceived notions about this information, although everybody looks like they've been here before, is I'd ask you to put those aside and entertain the concepts and the images and the information that you will hear today. And if you choose to believe that it is your truth, like I believe it is my truth, the truth will set you free. So, in order to understand what APIN Crystal Temple bases are, we need to understand what APIN systems are and the history that surrounds these ancient Atlantean technologies as well as the players within this ancient conflict drama. Isn't this a lovely picture? Sue Clemson did that for me. That's supposed to be Ashana holding a CDT plate. I think she did a great job. Okay, so as you see up there, it says some of the players. So some of the players, we have the Zeta Regalian Draconian Force. You'll see as we move through the presentation, they are associated with the Falcon APIN system and HARP. We have the Draconian Illuminati races, the Niberian Anunnaki, the Necromaton Andromes, the Jehovian Anu Elohim Anunnaki, which is what we refer to as the dove. the Alpha Omega Order, and United Intruder Resistance. So we're going to be learning about these. So what is the agenda of the players on the fallen angelic side? Well, their agenda is mass genocide through ethnic viruses and planetary dominion. The Guardian Alliance, there are an abundance of guardian nations assisting us through the stellar activation cycle. There is no way I could even begin to list them. There's a lot more guardians helping us than there are fallen angelics working against the law of one. So the Guardian Alliance, their agenda is the law of one, love and peaceful coevolution, eternal life, ascension, and freedom. I choose that one. Okay. Why? Because I want to be free, and I am free. Okay, so one of the things I want to say is as I look at the slide, I did not read everything on the slide because I don't have time to read everything on the slide. However, I put it all on the slide for you so that you can receive the full encryption of the information. Okay? So I may not read everything that you see. So the APIN Earth beginnings. What are APIN systems? Well, they're advanced crystalline microchip technologies. You can think of it as, I like to think of the analogy of whenever I'm flying to a workshop, particularly at night, and I'm flying and I look out the window, if I'm lucky enough to get a window seat, I look out and I see all the lights, all lit up, right? Some are on, some are off. Well, that's what these APIN systems are like when they look at them from their perspective. They see them as the microchips are lit up, and it's in the shape of the founders' races that put the APIN systems in. So if I was, say, flying out there somewhere, and I was a guardian on the Elohai level, and I wanted to look down and see where the great white lion was, I would look down and I could see it all lit up in the shape of a lion. Okay, so that's basically what these are, and there's APIN systems on the guardian side, and there's APIN systems on the fallen angelic side. So the Emerald Covenant races use the APIN systems to prevent cataclysms on Earth, and the fallen angelics basically use them to create cataclysm on Earth. Okay, so the Guardian races are activating their APIN, which is Atlantean Pylon Implant Network Systems, and LPIN systems, which is Lemurian. So the A means it's Atlantean, the L means it's Lemurian. Pylon Implant Network Systems to anchor D12 planetary divine blueprint to prevent pole shift as Earth's stargates progressively open between now and 2012. Now, the United Intruder Resistance are presently activating their APIN systems as well in hopes of fulfilling their One World Order agenda between 2003 and 2011 AD. So I found this interesting because when I first read Voyagers 2, I was like, 2011? We got some time. It's 2011, guys. So the APIN systems are massive global grid systems made of strategically placed crystalline microchips that interface directly with the natural, multidimensional, electromagnetic energy conduits of stargates, ley lines, excitonal line systems that are organic to Earth's Templar. So we know that they're a crystal-based technology. They were used for stargate travel, for evolution and ascension, for global free energy systems, climate stabilization, healing, all kinds of things. It's not an intrinsically negative technology. It just depends on how it's used and who's using it. Okay? So on the left here we have the golden eagle. You'll notice that it looks like it's flying. But it's positioned that way because it is the guardian of the horizontals. So it's the guardian of the ley lines in the planetary grid system. And the great white lion is the guardian of the verticals, which are the excitonal lines in the ley line system. And they were used as identification flags when viewed from space, which is what I was explaining. Like if you're on a plane and you look out, you want to see where your APIN system is, you'd use specific equipment and you could actually see it all lit up. So the great white line, this is the APIN system that it's showing the stargates on here and a couple of the excitonal lines. So we have the Sirius B created the great white lion as part of their Earth Templar Crisis Intervention mission. Because 5.5 million years ago, we had something called the electric wars, and the planetary grids were in really, really bad shape. So along with this one having the guardian of the verticals and its companion, the golden eagle, doing the horizontals, they actually weave a blanket of protection that holds the planetary grids together.
If we were in space, we would see it, or only like celebrities who have the high sight?
Only like they use special equipment. Yeah. And so one of the things when I was beginning to work with this information, I always wondered, how do you find a Stargate with the exotonal lines and the ley line systems? So I always play with the diagrams, I always draw on them. Right? I don't draw on the first copy. That's too sacred. But I make my own copy and I'll draw on it and color it. And I started noticing that ley line 2 was here, and exotonal line 2 was there, and Stargate 2 was right where they met. Okay, so let me see if I can illustrate that for you a little better here. This is exotonal line 2. This is ley line 2. And where the two meet is where you're going to find the Stargate. Exactly. And then there was just another example here, same here. Right here, 11, exotonal line 11, you'll find Stargate 11. Okay? These maps they're in my Templar manual because I built kind of my own through the years, so I couldn't really tell you anymore. But I don't think they are. I don't think they are.
The ley lines and the exotonal?
They are? Okay, thank you. And this is the golden eagle. As I said, this was the guardian of the horizontals. Because I remember when I first started putting this together, I said, oh no, I can't have something sideways. They'll have to go like this. But then I realized, oh wait, it has to be that way because it's the guardian of the horizontals. So there's a lot of, there's specific reasons why the diagrams are drawn the way they're drawn, even if we don't understand why. Okay, so this was created 5.5 million years ago. And it is created by the Seraphi races, which are winged hominid beings. And during the Lucifer rebellion, the golden eagle was overtaken by the Necromaton Andromi, Nephilim, the intruder races of Andromeda. And one of the exciting things is as we get further in the presentation, I wrote to the speakers. And I was like, okay, so it was taken over. And the Great White Line was shut down. Are they activated now? Because of all the work we've done. And basically what my understanding is what they said was that depending on how well things go in 2012 will depend on whether or not these systems come into full activation and whether or not we'll be able to reclaim the APIN systems.
What will it take?
Frequency, I guess. Christic frequency. So here we have the founders, 24 Nibirian crystal temple bases. They were installed 3 million years ago as a Nibiru interface link when Nibiru became an Emerald Covenant planet. When I was working with this, again, I did not know Nibiru was an Emerald Covenant planet. These are the places depicted on this map with beautiful rainbow akashas because the guardians have control of them in this diagram. So the first crystal temple base is in Kauai, Hawaii. Then we have the Vale of Pusey, England. We have Iran or Iran, I'm not sure exactly how that goes. Pakistan, Bermuda, Florida, which is our Gruel, Machu Picchu, Peru, Portugal, Lake Titicaca, Peru, Giza, Egypt, South Pole, Marantia, West Africa, Paxoi, Greece, Central Mexico, Cyprus Island, Easter Island in the Pacific, Rome, Italy, Johannesburg, South Africa, Brazil, Tibet, Xi'an, China, Hamadan, Iran, Iraq, and Bosnia. Now, with some of those names, you may recognize that some of them are Q sites and some of them are Stargates. For instance, this is a Q site. This is Q site 12. This is Stargate 11. This is Stargate 10. This is Stargate 5. Here we are here at the Gruel at Stargate 2. This is Stargate 3. This is Stargate 7. This is Stargate 4, Stargate 1, and so on. Yes? Q-site is the inner Earth Stargate. And you need to have access to the Q-site in order to activate your Stargate. Okay? All right. So, there was something referred to as the Anu occupation.
If I may ask, in Bosnia, do you know whether the pyramids that have been discovered in past 10 years are the site?
No, I do not. Okay, sorry about that. No, I don't know, but we can look into that. I can ask that question if you like. So we had something referred to as the Anu occupation in 148,000 to 75,000 BC, where these crystal temple bases were taken over by the Nibirian Anunnaki. Okay? So what happened was there were what they called raider wars. There was a Templar conquest on the surface earth. So the angelic humans and the Yanni went into subterranean settlements. Some of you may have cellular memory about that as well. So we basically lived underground for a while until the Yanni occupation was over. So now this looks a little different, doesn't it? The places are the same here, but now we have Pakistan as a control center for the Apin Systems when they're under fallen angelic control. Same with the Florida Gruel here. I'm sorry, not the Florida Gruel. Thank goodness not that one. Portugal is a control. Mauritius, West Africa is control. Brazil is a control center. Hamadan, Iran is control, as is Bosnia. So that may answer your question, but I don't know. This here, does anybody want me to enlarge that, or can you see that well enough? Enlarge it? Okay.
This is what happened when we were underground, this map.
I guess. Well, what this is, yeah, these are the crystal temple bases. You have your control bases here are shown in red on this map. Okay, so we have Pakistan. So you look for number 4, Pakistan, that's a control base. And we have Portugal, right here, that's a control base. Mauritius, West Africa, that's a control base. And we have that here. We have Brazil as a control base right here. Hamadan, Iran up here. And Bosnia, which is up here. Those are the control bases now, and those are depicted by this type of diagram. The other ones are different types of Illuminati bases. But what's interesting about this one here is Stonehenge, England is right there. And we're going to see why Stonehenge, England. But these are transmission lines. It's referred to as the spider grid. And it sends the transmission lines throughout the planetary grid system, creating reversals in something called the checkerboard matrix. Okay. Let's see if this works. Okay, good. So this is the Nibirian Diotic Crystal Grid, Stonehenge and Nibirian Crystal Temple Network. It's a lot to look at, so we're not going to go over the whole thing. We're going to go over it in little pieces. But what it is here's Stonehenge here. This is coming up from parallel Earth, energies and frequencies, right into Stonehenge, and it's right between the Q site and the Stargate 11. So it's right in between that natural transmission line where the Q site will be sending energy to the Stargate 11. And what it's doing is it's reversing that energy before it gets to Stargate 11 and sending it throughout the planetary grid system. Okay, so we're going to take a closer look at this. What I've done here is I've taken the diagram and just put a little box here so you can see what part of the diagram I'm referring to. Okay, so this one I'm reading here. The Nibirian Diotic Crystal Grid Control was installed 25,500 BC during the Lucifer Rebellion, which you'll see later is how they got control of Stargate 4. This begins in parallel antiparticle universe and anchors in our Earth from parallel Earth at Stonehenge, England. That's what I was showing you that was coming up. And the Stonehenge was right between the natural transmission line between Q-Site 11 and Stargate 11. The Nibirian Diotic Crystal Grid program reverses the natural fire letter scalar wave sequences, or you can just think of it as frequency, in half of Earth's Stargate 11 via its placement in the center of natural transmission line at Arcgate 2, Stonehenge, UK, between Q-Site 11, which is in southern Ireland, and Stargate 11 in the Valapussi, England. So at each, this is obviously where I'm reading here, it's highlighted here. At each of Earth's stargates and Q sites that run the Nibarian Dyadic crystal grid program, there are reverse matrix selenite crystals that are spliced into the natural crystal caverns. The natural crystal caverns are basically the stargates and the lines that run from the Q site to the stargate. The Nibarian crystal temples hold the reverse Nibarian Dyadic crystal grid program in Earth's planetary shields, making Earth's D1, D3, and density 1 telluric shield and planetary Merkaba spin in reverse of divine right order. It's a nasty little tool there. And this is just to show you, just to be complete, that this is what we've already gone over, so that we've covered all three areas of that diagram. So what exactly is it? The Nibarian Dyadic crystal grid photosonic program blocks and reverses the shields, and thus the name the checkerboard matrix. So some of them are turned on, some of them are turned off, some of them are reversed, some of them are not. The Nibarian Dyadic crystal grid carried its frequency program via the 24 primary. So we just saw the 24 primary crystal temple bases, and many secondary Nibarian crystal temple complexes that exist beneath Earth's crust. Now, I heard somewhere along the line there was like 400,000 other ones in the Earth's crust. The checkerboard matrix has blocked natural activation of the human DNA template and that of all Earth species, not just the humans, but the animals, the plant, and the mineral kingdom, creating a horrific genetic distortion called the checkerboard mutation. This is why our evolution has been thwarted. This is what dried up our pineal. This is what stopped the natural flow of the Kundalini energy that runs up the spine. This is what keeps us stuck in three-dimensional perception. This is why we have no memory of who we are and why we're here, and it's why we experience death. Death is not a natural thing for angelic human template. The checkerboard mutation leaves us amnesic, dying young, and babbling on. And then what they did was they taught us their language, right? Okay, so we're going to begin the Templar conquest. And this is where we kind of go back and forth through time as we start moving through this. So I'll do my best to illustrate this. In 75,500 BC, the Omicron Draconian, Odedicron reptilian races create the Dragon Apin system. Okay, so the Guardians have the Golden Eagle at this point and the Great White Lion. So the Omicron Draconian and Odedicron reptilians are going to create one as well because they also want to claim Earth territory. So theirs is called the Dragon Apin system. 25,500 BC, Lucifer Rebellion, the intruder races unite, which is interesting in and of itself since there's always all this infighting. Bring the Nibarian Dyadic crystal grid and Battlestar Wormwood, Stonehenge link, net checkerboard matrix grid control, DNA mutation technologies to Atlantis for Earth Templar Dominion. So when they brought these to Atlantis, it kind of goes something like this, in my mind anyway. Hey, we've got these great technologies. You can do some great healing with them. You can control the climate. You can do all kinds of things with them. So yeah, so it was welcomed in Atlantis, but it was also a double-edged sword because it was also used to put reversals into the planetary grid system. So Nibarian Anunnaki seized control of Solar Stargate 4 and partial control of Giza Pyramid, Egypt. So let's see what that did. So this is the complete diagram here. Okay, and I'm going to take that and break that down as well. Okay, just want to, because we didn't have time to render them, I want you to get the whole frequency packets as A.Channel has given it to everyone else. Okay, so this is the way it is in the Templar manual. So first thing that happened was they seized control of Stargate 4 during Lucifer Rebellion. Does anybody know how they did that? Lorraine? Thoth was in control of Stargate 4. Okay, so in the Lucifer Rebellion, they seized control of Stargate 4. They used the power of Stargate 4 to force an artificial link between Nibiru and the sun. This way, they made a Merkaba happen at a different angle than it's supposed to happen. And they linked Nibiru to the Battlestar Wormwood. Nibiru has an interesting orbit. And it goes out, I think it's something like 3,600 years or 3,560 years. and it goes out of orbit, so they can't really monitor planet Earth. So they create this Battlestar Wormwood. It's connected to the other end of their orbit so that when Nibiru goes out, the Battlestar comes in so that they can constantly watch over, so to speak. They use the Nibirian data crystal grid network to anchor it and keep it running. So this is what instantly caused genetic damage to anything on the planet. It scrambled our DNA, and it was the process of us losing our memory and becoming vulnerable to fallen angelic manipulation. So this is what a natural particle and antiparticle galaxy looks like. We've got the correct ratio on the Merkaba here. We've got the sun here sending its messages to each planet in a nice symmetry. It's quite beautiful when you look at it that way. And what this does is it creates a higher frequency. It's a self-perpetuating eternal life system. Okay? And you can take this to the personal level as well with the Merkabas. So now look at this mess. This is the reversed particle-antiparticle galaxy. Here's Nibiru, here's Wormwood, here's the sun. The Merkaba spirals are all connected, and it's creating a terrible mess. Okay, so you can see the difference visually, correct? Sure. See the difference? Okay. And what this did was created a lower frequency, self-consuming, finite system. And again, you can apply this to your personal Merkaba as well. If you're not using the correct spin ratio, then you can create a finite system in yourself as well. So the dragons have their Apin system. So the Jehovian Anunnaki have to create one because they also want control of Earth. So they create something called the Dove Apin system. What does APIN stand for? Atlantean Pylon Implant Network System. Pylon, crystal pylons, implanted into the grid system network. Okay? So the Golden Eagle, which remember was a guardian APIN system, was hijacked by the Necromaton Andrami, Nephilim hybrids. It was run on reverse phantom matrix current as the White Eagle APIN system. So the Palladian, Nibirian, Samjazi, Luciferian, Enki, Zephelium, and Odedicron Anunnakis. There's a lot of Anunnakis because there was a lot of hybridization programs that were going on. They install a serpent APIN system. So now we've got the great white lion, we've got the golden eagle, we've got the dragon, we've got the dove, and now we have a serpent APIN system. So what they're doing is they're claiming and staking out their territory for the final conflict drama, which we're smack dab in the middle of. Okay? All right, so let's just go on to the next slide here. So because of all that happening, there's what we call crisis intervention. 22,500 BC to 22,326 BC, the Guardians realize the phantom matrix, which we're going to learn about, is near critical mass accretion, which means it's big enough that it can start drawing Earth into its system. So there's an indigo crisis intervention team sent from Inner Earth to Lemuria for the Crystals Realignment Mission, which is creating a level 12 planetary Maharic seal to protect the planet Earth through the ascension cycle and the stellar activation cycle. The Ayani install something called the Four Faces of Man, guardian of the 12 pillars, Lemurian Pylon Implant Network System. The Maharaji of Sirius B and Antares Alter Rashiana install the Blue Oxen APIN interface system. So now we have two more. We have an LPIN system called the Four Faces of Man, and we have a Blue Oxen called the Blue Oxen APIN system. The Intruder Jehovian Anunnaki Dove APIN is expanded, and Thoth breaks the Emerald Covenant and leads the 22,326 BC Iani massacre. Now, it's my understanding that when we, as voyagers, came in as Yanni to realign the planetary grid system. The Yanni massacre occurred while we were actually activating the four faces of man LPIN system. So the founders had to postpone the Crystals realignment mission to the next SAC, December 21st, 2012, final conflict stalemate, to resolve during the 2000-2017 AD SAC. So we're in 2011. We have 6 more years. But one of the things that Speaker 2 sent to me when I posed the question was that there is an opportunity again, if the 2012 goes well, for the four faces of man to come into full activation. 3 of the faces came into a level 8 activation, and the 4th face never started. Okay? Because the Guardian Alliance in 2003 shut it down so that it was not taken over by the United Intruder Resistance. So we have huge potential ahead of us. We can do what we have to do in 2012. We can activate the Golden Eagle and reclaim the Oxen and activate the Great White Line and the four faces of man LPIN system. We have the potential to create that level 12 planetary Maharic seal and be free from fallen angelic manipulation. Right, exactly. Yes, we can. Yes, you can. So I talked about Phantom Matrix earlier, and we're going to talk about the wall in time. So what is the wall in time? Here's planet Earth. And remember I said the Guardians had realized that Phantom Matrix had reached an accretion level that was going to be dangerous and start pulling Earth in. So this is my depiction of a wall, okay? They put a frequency barrier between there so that Phantom Matrix couldn't grab energy from Earth. All right? But then what happened was during the Lucifer conquest, they started poking holes in the wall in time, and they created wormholes. Enoch defects from the Emerald Covenant, links the Dove APIN system with the Phoenix wormhole, and this is how what is referred to as the Jehovian seals were created. The founders secure temporary Phoenix Falcon wormhole cap. So, you know, they're recapping it. The wormholes were put in the wall in time. The founders put a cap on it. And they temporarily pushed back further Anunnaki invasion of Egypt. However, the Omega Centauri Intruder Blue Centaur races take over the Blue Oxen APIN. So, yes?
Why do they all keep deflecting from the Emerald Covenant?
Why do they all keep deflecting from the Emerald Covenant? That's a really big question, and I don't know the answer to that one. I don't know. Perhaps they're choosing to experience what it's like to experience the opposite expression so that they can know the true law of one when they see it, feel it. I couldn't even begin to tell you why someone makes the choices they do as a collective. But yeah, it's a question that's been in my mind as I was going over this. So we'll continue with the Templar conquest. 9560 BC to 9558 BC, the Atlantean Leviathan Illuminati blow the cap off. So the founders create the wall in time. The Jehovian Anunnaki put wormholes in it and create the Jehovian seals. The Guardians cap those wormholes, and now they're blowing the Guardian cap off the wormholes again. Okay, and they create the Atlantean flood, the house cleaning, basically getting rid of all the sacred material, all the Templar mechanics and the Templar sciences, so that the people on planet don't know that they're here to be planetary stewards and how to run the Templar. So the Guardian Alliance installs a frequency fence to recap the wormholes. The Guardians create the Ark of the Covenant gold box, rod, and staff Stargate tools, and those are used to activate the Stargates, open the portals. So this becomes something that everybody wants. So we have the Necromaton and Andromi races and Illuminati hybrids running competing territory conquest agendas, trying to capture the Ark of the Covenant gold box, rod and staff tools so that they can activate their APIN systems for Templar Dominion. So the rod and staff tools are what also activate the APIN systems. Okay. In 5900 BC, the Centurions attempt to use the hijacked Blue Oxen APIN for Templar Dominion. Air attacks are squelched by the GA Series B Maharaji and the Palladian series. The Illuminati races infiltrate and hybridize with all human major 12 tribes. But the Iani Indigo Maji Grail line retains pure strain 12 to 48 strand DNA. Does anybody know how that occurred? They were running something called rainbow roundtables, bringing in the higher frequency. And D12 frequency is wonderful, but what the rainbow roundtables were doing is they were starting to bring in the frequencies of the primal light and sound fields. Okay? And this is how we're able to retain that original coding. All right. So everybody doing good? Yep. All right. So we're going to learn a little bit more about wormholes. We're going to learn about the Arimathea wormhole because when I was looking through these teachings, it was the first one that I could find that was created. So we're just going to give you a little information on that one. And then we'll go over a little more history, 1903 through the 1940s. We'll talk about the Falcon wormhole, what the Philadelphia experiment was, what it really was, the 11-11-12-12 frequency fence, the Budhara wormhole, and HARP. Just a little stuff to cover. So, the Arimathea wormhole was created 570 million years ago. It was created by beings from the Phantom Matrix and Wezadek Matrix. The purpose was to take quantum of living systems. And how did they do it? They created a one-hole technology by poking holes in the natural template of living systems. And then, they would siphon the energy. They used Aramatzus, their 11.5 star, and created a wormhole between the moon of Avalon and the moon of our D11 Avion system. Okay, so that's the one that I found that went back the furthest. Now, there's a lot more wormholes that we're not even going to begin to cover, but this was the first one that I was able to find within the teachings. Yes? The 11.5? Right. She was asking if that was as high as they can go. Yes, that's as high as they can go, 11.5. They can't reach that D12 frequency. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. You want to see the wormhole again? Okay. Just want to make sure. Yes. Okay. Okay. All right. Good now?
What's that thing on there, a truck?
That's a spaceship. I actually thought it was a truck too, so that's why I'm laughing. It's like a cosmic vacuum cleaner. That's actually really good. Okay. So 1903 to 1916, I certainly wasn't here then, but I don't think anybody in the room was here then. The Zetas of Phantom Earth opened the Atlantean Falcon wormhole and begin speculation for invasion. What's going to be the best place for us to get into that planet so that we can start invading the people and the land? The militant Zeta Regalians, force of the Phantom Alnitak Orion, take over the Falcon wormhole. So the Zetas of Phantom Earth open the Falcon wormhole. The Zeta Regalian take over the Falcon wormhole. And they begin covert infiltration of Earth governments on behalf of the Zeta Draconian agenda, overthrowing the historically positioned Anunnaki stronghold on the Illuminati covert One World Order operation. So the Anunnaki Illuminati are starting to lose control that they had in the governments on Earth. The fallen angelics begin competing progressive conquest for activation and dominion of the Apin Systems in preparation for the 2000-2017 stellar activation cycle, which, as I mentioned before, we're well into. And this is just an enlargement of the map so that you can see what that little diagram that I had on the right-hand side. This is the Halls of Amenti Stargate map, and this is just showing the lines that are here. These are the excitonal lines. The A numbers are the excitonal lines in the grid line system, and the L numbers are the ley lines, okay? And the wormholes that we're discussing right now, the Phoenix and the Falcon wormholes, are on excitonal line 7 in alignment with the Jehovian seals that were created when the Dove Apin system was expanded and linked into the wormholes, okay? So back into the 1930s, the early Zeta treaties, which are basically one world order dominion treaties, they began and formed the Majestic 12 seed group covert Illuminati one world order management team, and under Zeta Draconian agenda. Now the MJ-12, I never knew what that was. I saw the movie The Men in Black, and I think this is what they're referring to when they say Majestic 12, the Men in Black. The Zeta Regalians set out to activate the Falcon APIN and begin ethnic virus sonic pulse unnatural disaster program, testing for intended reduction of human populations if the stellar activation cycle commenced in 2000, and then they would begin their abduction hybridization programs. So this is interesting. I'll see if you can follow me on here. I'll do my best. The Zeta Regalians assist to organize and strengthen the Hitler Nazi movement. Hitler agrees to advanced race supremacy program with the intention of exterminating specific Hibiru, Anunnaki, Illuminati hybrid races, while protecting Hibiru, Illuminati hybrid lines of the draconian races. So Hitler makes this deal that he's going to eliminate only certain specific Illuminati, and he's going to protect others. Okay? Well, we'll see. So what happens is Hitler makes double deals. Does that answer your question? So Hitler makes double deals with the Necromaton Andramis and kills the group of Draconian Hibiru Illuminati that he said that he would protect. So the Zeta Regalians withdraw their Nazi support. Now the Necromaton Andrami races attempt to mobilize their Illuminati races in Hawaii and Nagasaki, Japan, to build underground bases to hijack the Zeta Regalians Falcon APIN port interface system at its Nagasaki site. Starting to see how this is all about the APIN systems? Okay. The Zeta Regalians instruct their Illuminati hybrids in Japan and the U.S. via MJ-12, the covert One World Order management team, to launch the Pearl Harbor strike. I had no idea until I read Voyages that that's what that was all about. So now the Zetas provide the Allies with the A-bomb technology. The Allies, that would be us, here anyway, specifically to use on Nagasaki to regain Nagasaki Falcon APIN site under Zeta Regalian control. So all the stuff that's happening in a political level, all the stuff that's happening in different cultures, all has to do with which APIN system who is going to get control of. Okay? Because if you remember when I was talking in the very beginning of the presentation, the APIN systems, you can create Stargate travel, you can create climate stabilization, or you can control the weather, whichever you're choosing to use the APIN system for. So Hiroshima, Necromaton and Andrami Illuminati were wiped out. And that was August 6, 1945. Nagasaki was reclaimed under Zeta Regalian control. But not only were the Necromaton and Andrami Illuminati wiped out in the Hiroshima, so was the Magi Grail line. The U races were destroyed. Okay. So here's another wormhole. This one is called the Leistaki Budhara wormhole. So now we're coming forward back in time. This is about 2004. So how was this Leistaki Budhara wormhole done? It was a triangulation between three secondary Leistaki Budhara wormholes located at HARP, which is up here, Q Site 12 in Kauai, Hawaii, right there, Trinity Stargate 1 in Malibu Beach, California, over there, which is where we were actually having a workshop at the time. And then the center of the wormhole, the control wormhole, was in the Pacific Ocean, right in between the triangulation. It was activated May 27, 2004 during our Hitharo workshop. Why was it activated? It was activated to link the Budhara complex and the Falcon APIN complex that began activation August 2004 in Belize, Mexico, another workshop. So we have Hitharo, the electrical peak, and we have August Hethalon, the magnetic peak, when we're doing these. So the Budhara retrovirus, which was my understanding of this, is that it's something that was in our DNA that they brought into activation that was not a really good thing that was in our DNA. And this is when Cathara 2.3 was brought out, the crystal body restoration healing technologies. So the retrovirus began November 2003, February 2004, due to WISA deals made between the UIR Wisadex and the Budhara Chanterelle, and the resultant progressive activation of the Budhara wormhole complex that began August 4th, 2003 during the Belize, Mexico workshop. So HARP was part of that triangulation. So what does HARP stand for? That was my first question. Why is it always capital H-A-A-R-P wherever you see it? It's always a capital. So I learned that it's a high-frequency active oral research program. They use sound. It was installed on Earth under orders of the Zeta Regalian of the 1930 Illuminati Human Zeta Treaties, which were basically the One World Order Dominion treaties. The HARP facility in Alaska is a decoy. That's why they let us know about that one. It's a fake one. It's like, okay, so here, this is HARP. You guys can focus on it. You can say everything you want, but you don't have to know about the other 12 over here. Okay, so that's what a decoy is. Okay. There are 12 other similar facilities on Phantom Earth that interface with our Earth via the Falcon APIN system and the draconian controlled sites of the Niberian Crystal Temple Network. The Phantom Earth's HARPs, originally Zeta Regalian technologies, are the intended primary transition stations in the one transmission, you're right, thank you, One World Order agenda. Unfortunately, angels do play these HARPs, fallen angels, and they play trumpets too, which we're going to learn about later. So what is the HARP's intentions? Well, it was created by both the scientists and outer external government. What is it? It's the installation is a high-frequency radio transmitter complex. Why was it installed? Well, the ultra-low frequency waves are intended to improve submarine communications. This is what they are saying. Not to mention ET water, underwater-based communications, and will allow detection of subterranean phenomenon, such as oil reserves and underground missile silos. The elite key controllers within the Illuminati establishments do know it's intended to assist the visitors in creating the mass frequency fence. And we already know that it's located in Alaska. Conveniently, the HARP will be very handy in locating underground bases, parked spaceships, and Niberian Crystal Temple network sites and APIN systems as well. So this is one of the ways that they also detect the APIN systems.
Do we know where the other 12 are?
Phantom Earth, that's all I know. Yeah. And I don't want to go and find out, actually. You had a question?
Yeah. Well, if I remember, Nikola Tesla did an experiment in 1930s,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually caused like a big explosion in Siberia. And then he was playing with all the parties during the Second World War in order or to restore peace or to do something. But he actually used this device in Long Island to create this explosion at the Siberia. And they thought that it's a comet that actually has fallen on the Earth, but it was not. They discovered later on. And he was able to triangulate somehow the same thing like the HARP is doing. And probably, I don't know whether there is a connection.
I couldn't tell you whether there's a connection, but I wouldn't doubt it. He was a very, very brilliant scientist. So, what are the real intentions of HARP? The HARP installation and several other related global facilities will be activated to broadcast a mass frequency fence, a photosonic scalar pulse technology that can harness human brainwave patterns via bio-neurological blocking into a selected frequency range within which natural perceptual facilities can be technologically manipulated. Hence the technology age and boom. The target date for the frequency fence is 2003 to 2004. Television and computers. Now, when I was going over this, I realized that some people might be afraid to hear this information. But what I would say to you is that when we activate our Christ-Star vehicle and we bring that into activation, we are protected from those frequencies. And if that isn't, if you don't feel protected enough, you can expand, you can put a shield between yourself and the computer screen, which I do all the time because I work on the computer a lot, or between, whatever the radio or the television, blow it up 4 times the size of the screen, and then, you'll be protected. I don't know how long the shield lasts. I think it depends on your own level of frequency. So even though the information is scary for some people, there's always a solution. Yes?
I had noticed that they were selling like this purple plate that you like put under the TV was supposed to protect you.
Oh, I couldn't even tell you about those purple plates.
Supposedly, Nikola Tesla made that to protect himself while he was experimenting.
Okay, well, what I would say is, obviously that's a personal choice. I choose to use the Illyri Rashatan code, which is given by the Guardians to protect us from those frequencies. Well, it's right over here. Okay. Well, I believe they were, at least to some degree, because most people are stuck in 3.5, perceptual range.
That's why they ran with the HDTVs too, because they used some of the messages.
What you said?
Oh, the HD TVs, yes. Mm-hmm. Right, right. What he was saying was that's why there was this big push for the HD TVs, because it's a different type of technology and they can actually basically blast more frequency more effectively. So, the Guardians just keep giving us more and more frequency that we can work with so that we can protect ourselves and still fulfill our mission. Without being in fear. You don't want to be in fear. As soon as you step into fear, they got you, right? Exactly. There's nothing to be afraid about. We are all guardians here. We are all Christics. We have a lot more potential than they do, and they know it. So what they're trying to do is squelch our potential, but it doesn't matter. We're still going to do it anyway. Okay, so the Philadelphia experiment. I think this movie aired in like 1984 or something like that. There was a movie. But what the Philadelphia experiment was there was a hole that was punched in the wall in time. Remember the wall in time that prevented the phantom matrix from sucking Earth frequencies in? Yes. By uncapping the Falcon wormhole and creating the Phi-X wormhole port interface network and the Apin system network. So again, we have phantom matrix here in our Earth. The wall in time is here. Phantom matrix is Zeta controlled. Okay? Now, when they did the Philadelphia experiment, they uncapped the Falcon wormhole, and when they launched this Philadelphia experiment, the first full link between the planetary shields of the Zeta controlled Phantom Earth and our Earth was made in contemporary times. So when they did this Philadelphia experiment, they did it in 1943, which was a 20-year magnetic peak, and they linked it to the future of 1983, which was the Montauk Project. Okay? Yeah. So, and then as we get further on, they tried to do what's called a dimensional blend experiment in 2003, which was actually the 100-year magnetic peak. And this is when we were in Andorra, and we were gifted with something called the Mahadra Adrana code. And what this was beautiful code that was the divine blueprint of the magnetic and the electrical frequencies for the Galactic Ark of the Covenant. So they were not successful with the dimensional blend experiment. So they're still messing around with the solar Merkaba fields. The Zetas are manipulating the Merkaba fields with this. Guardians have to put in their own frequency fence. And that was a surprise to me as well. So the Guardians put in an 1111, 1212 frequency fence, which blocked all of the fourth dimensional frequencies from the sun, coming from the sun, the fourth dimensional frequencies, except the 12th base tone and overtone out of the Earth grids. And why is that? Exactly. And because we can also still maintain our activation when the stellar activation cycle commenced. We can still run the D12 frequency. because they cannot access D12, the fallen angelics. Okay, so now before the original plan could continue, which is the Christos realignment mission, the 11-11-12 frequency fence now had to be dismantled because the only way to do that was to correct the Merkaba fields of the sun. So if you're on a planet and somebody's going to start messing with the Merkaba fields of your sun, there's going to be a little chaos that happens. So this was a huge surprise to me when I was putting this together. Earth existed under a guardian-created holographic insert from 1973 to 1992. 20 years. In 1973, I was in high school. Had no idea that there was anything like a holographic insert, but it existed for 20 years. Do you know what you were doing in those 20 years? Did you have any idea that it was a holographic insert, that everything was going fine on planet? Yeah, it was a buffer field put in by the Guardians. Yeah, so it's basically same as the Apin systems. Holographic inserts can be used for good or not good. It just depends on the intention of the person creating them. Yes?
We have the Hurricane Andrew manuscript that we're trying to probably...
The Hurricane Andrew? Uh-huh.
That's part of that. Was that anything to do with that when that ended?
That I don't know. I think Hurricane Andrew, we'll go into that later in the presentation, had to do with an expansion of one of the wormholes. Okay?
Can you say what, in one sentence, what a holographic insert is?
Okay, a holographic insert, because holographic inserts are basically encoded in your DNA. Okay? You know that nothing can exist in your hologram unless it's in your DNA because you project it out through your radial body, correct? So in my mind, a holographic insert is something that can be as real as you sitting here. And I'm touching him, right? So, so it can be that real, okay? But a holographic insert is something, it's like somebody's giving you a big television show, something that somebody wants you to see and or experience. And you experience because the DNA is activated to do so. Well, how long have you been around? Yeah, so I couldn't tell you. It's in the DNA is all I can say.
It's something that's not connected to the source.
No, correct. It's not something that is connected to the source. Okay. All right, so is everybody still doing good? This one? You want me to read down here? Why? The Earth's grid had to reach the speed of the ultra-high frequency bands of D3 for the first seal of the Ark of the Covenant to spark and release the sphere of Amenti in 1986 so that the stellar activation cycle could begin. The sphere of Amenti is what holds the race morphogenetic field for the planet. Okay, so when people incarnate, they have to go through the sphere of Amenti. And this has to come down during the stellar activation cycle. Okay. Mm-hmm.
That was around the time of the harmonic convergence?
Right before, yeah. So now we're going to do the Great White Lion. We're going to learn a little bit more about the Golden Eagle and the Great White Lion, the Dragon Apin system, the quest to tame the Great White Lion, and Transcendence Day. So now we're going to learn a little bit about the structure and the design of the Apin systems. The structure of the Great White Lion Apin system broadcast a statement to the fallen Anu Elohim and the Anunnaki fallen angelic collectives. The Earth races were united under the common banner of the Founders' Emerald Coevolution Peace Treaty. In other words, they were going to stand by us during the stellar activation cycle to assist us in regaining our essential potential and freedom from the fallen angelic manipulation. The design of the original Sphinx, there were two Sphinx, the design of the original Sphinx was a three-dimensional representation of the Great White Lion Apin system, created from translating the Founders' Apin maps as held in the Emerald Covenant CDT plate records. So the Sphinx was actually built to commemorate the activation of the Great White Lion. So the primary purpose of the Great White Lion was basically to assist Earth through the stellar activation cycle. Because in 5.5 million years ago, during the electric wars, the Earth's shields were in very, very bad shape. So as I said earlier, the great white lion is the guardian of the verticals, and then you have the golden eagle, the guardian of the horizontals, and it weaves a blanket of protection. In technical terms, the great white lion and its golden eagle companion, Apin Systems, literally hold Earth's shattered planetary shields and scalar template together during SACs, during stellar activation cycle. So what's important to understand here is, first of all, this is the guardian of the verticals, the powerful lion, meaning the Apin system, with the pure Christed heart of a lamb. I'm going to ask you to remember that. So let's take a look at this beauty. The great white lion's heart is located right here, Montségur, France, at Stargate 12. Okay, so the heart is Stargate 12. The throat from which the lion roared was at Stargate 11 in southern England, right here. The head looked out to the west, cresting the North Polar regions, spanning Central and Northern Europe, across Atlantis and into northeastern America. Sorry, I'm having trouble with the microphone cord here. The tail of the lion extends basically from here, Asia, comes down around here through Australia, down around here is South Pole, and encompasses part of Southern America. So what I would say is when you look at these diagrams, if you just like trace them over, you can start to really start picking up some frequency and some understanding. The body of the lion lay at rest across the expanse of the Asian continent, while the lion's great front paws, I love that part, the great front paws, stretched out across North America and South America, its rear left paw shrouding the continent of Africa. So that is what is held sacred by the great white lion. Okay? That's a lot of land. Those areas of what the great white lion, if it was activated on its full 12 code, all those areas would be protected by that one system. Well, you'll see later that there are other Apin systems that are in there as well. Yeah. So the Jehovian quest to tame the lion. I had a couple of ahas that I'll share with you when I get done with this one. So this is a picture of the Bible. The Jehovian promise was that the day would come when the lion would lie down with the lamb. What the Jehovians failed to explain was that the lamb, which we know as Stargate 12 Montségur, France, the heart of the great white lion Apin system, was sacrificed and cut out upon the altar of the fallen angelic Omicron draconian force of Elnatek, Orion, during the last consummated sack of 208,216 BC. So I read that information. I was like, how did that happen? So I started to understand during the stellar activation cycle, the fall of Brennaway, which occurred around here in Sarasota, in 208,216 BC, the Draconian took over, and the stellar activation cycle was failed, and it opened, the planetary grids opened on a 10-code pulse. And that was the clue. Okay? This grid can only run up to 10-dimensional frequencies in verse. The Lamb, Stargate 12, was cut off. The D12 frequency was no longer able to run on the frequency. Another aha I had was, I was going over this with my daughter, believe it or not, and she started telling me about a book called The Chronicles of Narnia. Chronicles of Narnia. And I guess there's this great white lion named Aslan. And what happens is the witch, or the witch's people, holds the lion down by the heart, or by the throat, and cuts out the heart. And that's all about what this is all about. So the information is getting out there in a lot of the mythologies and a lot of the fiction stories. So what you see there is the dragon intruder Apin system. So the great white lion is seized by the throat and the golden eagle is caged. The 25,500 BC Lucifer Rebellion, remember that's when they got control of Stargate 4 and reversed the Merkabahs. The Marduk Luciferian Anunnaki and the Necromaton Andromi Anunnaki hybrid races of Alpha and Omega Centauri and the Thoth Enki Zeta Anunnaki races of Nibiru implanted the Nibirian dotted crystal grid in Earth's Templar. That's what we went over earlier this morning. The Nibirian dotted crystal grid was used to reverse the natural scalar template sequences on Earth's primary ley lines 4 and 10, the east-west centerline axis upon which the golden Apin system was structured. The golden eagle Apin system fell to Necromaton Andromi agenda. So the golden eagle is no longer the golden eagle at this point. It's the white eagle. So those white eagle teachings out there, you might want to kind of feel out where they're really coming from. So the big question, can the great white lion and the golden eagle be healed and awakened in time? Now, I put Transcendence Day here, but in time, really, what does that mean? Maybe 2014 or 2017 is in time. We don't know what the divine timing is. So January 1st, 2000 was the commencement of the stellar activation cycle. The heart of the great white lion, APIM, began beating with a 12-code pulse. So it did get activated. It just didn't come into full activation. And that's what's referred to as Transcendence Day. And I believe it was anchored here at Sarasota. So the white eagle and the Melchizedek deception. Does anybody need a stretch break or a comfort break?
Stand up, break, and sit down, baby.
Okay, fine. Stand up and stretch and sit down. And we'll move on. I'll continue while you stretch. So the topics that we are going to cover are the white eagle, the Melchizedek deception, the phantom matrix and the Melchizedek order, the blue oxen, the four faces of man LPIN system, the drama escalation and the Illuminati and one world order, and the sonic pulses and virus program.
Why is it that the guardian races have to allow this to happen before they do something?
Well, what he was asking is why is it that the Guardian Alliance races allow this to happen before they do something? And what I would say to you is I've asked that question of myself, and where I always go with it is they have a huge amount of allowance. But when they get to a certain point, the hand goes up. And I think we're at that point. Yes.
We have some responsibility in this.
And exactly, we do have responsibility in this too.
We made a choice.
Okay. Is everybody good? So, since the 25,500 BC, which again was the Lucifer Rebellion, the Golden Eagle APIN system has been held hostage, which is why I put it in a cage there, and used to do the bidding of the Necromaton Andromi Anunnaki, Nephilim and Marduk Luciferian Anunnaki. So I just wanted understood that the cage here is because it's been taken over. Okay, it's not the Guardian being used by the Guardians right now. This group proudly refers to themselves as the Alpha Omega Order of Melchizedeks and uses the symbol of the white eagle as an antagonistic mockery to the Emerald Covenant races. The Alpha Omega's unfortunate victory in claiming the Guardian races Sirius Golden Eagle APIN system. Okay. Ceres. It's one of the Guardian races. So, how many people here are from the United States of America? Okay. Wow. Okay. I think we're a minority right now. The Golden Eagle was intended to become the symbol of the free America when the USA was formed. Instead, the white-headed bald eagle became the national mascot, symbolizing the Alpha Omega Order's partial victory in becoming the directors of a controlling portion of the U.S. Illuminati force, the Freemason Knights Templar Legion. Know some of those people. Again, down here, the Golden Eagle was intended to become the symbol of the free America. So the Melchizedek priesthoods of the Alpha Omega order are actually control paradigms on the dogmas of the fallen Anu Elohim, Anunnaki, and Necromaton races originating from the Phantom Matrix. That's the Phantom Matrix there. The Alpha Omega order, Melchizedek order, the Alpha Omega Melchizedek order will no longer be permitted to hide beneath the skirts of the Emerald Order Melchizedek cloister and the Christic freedom agenda for which it stands. The Melchizedek cloister will no longer offer peace negotiations to these groups. So I think it's a good time, given that information, let's just do the I Am Free LTR grid. Sound like a good idea? All right. Excuse my lighting. Can everybody see that? Okay, we'll start on 3 and do it with passion as the Christics that we are. 1, 2, 3. I am loved, honored, and protected, safe within the eternal arms of divine grace. I am safe, secure, and provided for by the eternal living God source and inner Christos. I am beloved, appreciated, and cherished. I am free from karma now. I am free from phantoms, shadow dancers. I am totally secure and at ease in my world. I am no longer afraid of life's many dramas. I am no longer afraid to love. I am love. I live in a safe, supportive, and loving universe. There is enough of everything for everyone. I give myself permission to live the life that I desire. I am at peace within. I am at peace without. I am peace. I am free to be all that is me. And so it is. Ta'eja inta doe. Ta'eja inta doe. Ta'eja inta doe. Now close your eyes and feel that frequency. How powerful that linguistic template reprogramming power it is. Allow it to just move into the cells of your body. And remember, as we move through this information, you are free. So, now we're going to learn about the blue oxen Apin system, which was referred to as the sacred cow. The blue oxen Apin was created by the Sirius B Maharaji and the Rashana of the Brahmarama Amethyst Order, one of the founders' races. It was created in 22,500 BC as a specialized interplanetary contact network. That's one of the things that the Apin systems are, is their communication networks. It was hijacked by the Blue Centaur intruders in 10,500 BC, used to further the One World Order Dominion agendas of the Centaurians, which of course is Templar Dominion, and their frequent allies, the Necromaton and Andromi Anunnaki of Alpha and Omega Centauri. The Guardian Alliance will reclaim, through the final conflict drama of the 2000-2017 SAC, the blue oxen will be reclaimed by the Maharaji. Now, let me just explain this for a little bit so you can understand what I did here. This is a representation behind, that's lighter in the background, of all the intruder Apin systems, okay? And this is the blue oxen. Right now it's trapped within all those systems. But it's not anymore because we're going to reclaim it. So that's basically what I'm trying to show there. Okay? So now we move into what exactly is the Four Faces of Man LPIN. Remember earlier I said that Apin Systems are Atlantean pylon implant network systems. The Four Faces of Man is the Lemurian. That's what the L is for, pylon implant network systems. And the design of it is the guardians of the 12 pillars. The Four Faces of Man was created by the Iani Indigo in 22,500 BC to 22,326 BC in preparation for the stellar activation cycle back then in order to create that level 12 planetary Maharic seal. The four faces are the guardians of the four corners, the north, the south, the east, and the west. The great white lion will awaken with a loving roar, and the golden eagle will spread its wings and be restored to its original dignity once this LPIN system reaches its 12th level of activation. As I said earlier, the three faces have reached the 8th level of activation, and the fourth face did not activate at all, and it was shut down completely in 2003 by the Guardians, to once again be reclaimed after 2012. Yes. Yes. You actually have in your handout, you have a bigger one so that you can see it. So the design of the Four Faces of Man LPIN system was designed in the image of the angelic human race and the Azurite Iani Magi Indigo children races of inner earth. Does anybody recognize these? Exactly, Easter Island. They were put in, those structures were put in by the Iani. So this is the one that you actually have in your handout. Okay. I told you it was going to activate cellular memory, didn't I? Okay, so that's so wonderful to see. The Four Faces of Man, guardians of the 12 pillars LPIN system. The four faces that run through Earth, Terra, Gaia are the guardians of the four corners or the angels of the four directions. Now these are the real angels because you're going to learn about what other angels are. The two other set of four faces exist, one on parallel Earth, Terra, Gaia, and one on inner Earth, Terra, Gaia. The cumulative 12 faces are called the guardians of the 12 pillars. Four of the 12 primal rainbow ray sound pillars of the planetary crystals realignment mission anchor into Earth via the four heads of the Earth's Four Faces of Man LPIN system. So this is one of the ones, this was brought in because the fallen angelics can't really break its coding. And do you know why? After what I just read? It's because it's bringing in the primal light and sound frequencies. Okay. So, guess what? The Kuveka code, does anybody recognize this? Everybody recognizes this. Begins level 1 activation of the Four Faces of Man LPIN in you. So if you want to take a moment and breathe that in with the intention of bringing that into activation. Take a moment and breathe it into each of these areas of chakra, to the thyroid. Breathe it into your tailbone, into the heart chakra, and into the pineal gland. The center here actually represents the Four Faces of Man LPIN system. Okay? Feels pretty good, huh? 11 more levels to go. Okay, and now this is also another symbol that we recognize at the center of the Akasha, referred to as the Rushe. But it also represents the Four Faces of Man LPIN system. The center part here represents the Four Faces of Man on Earth. Okay? The yellow line here represents parallel Earth's Four Faces of Man LPIN system. And this one on the outside represents inner Earth, Four Faces of Man LPIN. Another reason to just like totally wear the ruche, within the Akasha shape or by itself. It is such a powerful symbol. And I'm sure we don't know the half of it. Okay, so the four faces of man, LPIN, and humanity. If humanity assists the Emerald Covenant races in awakening the ancient guardians, which are the LPIN and the Apin Systems, left behind as our Lemurian Atlantean legacy, further progression of the UIR One World Order Dominion agenda can be averted. Excuse me one second. If we do not assist, the Illuminati agenda will continue, leading humanity into global war, physical intruder ET invasion, and pole shift between 2003 and 2008. Well, that hasn't happened. So here's a speaker update. July 2002, the Guardian Alliance initiates level 8 of 12 stages on the 3 of the 4 faces. Phase 4 grids are shut down by May 2003 by the Guardians. Stages 9, 10,